And now we go on to Daf Lametes Amid Beis, and we're continuing in the drasha of this pasuk in Vayikra Perek Dalid regarding the Chatos Pnimios. Then it says, Kasher Osel Par Zeh Par Kohen Mashiach. Right? We've already discussed that the par of a Kohen Mashiach, if he is a scholar and he issued an erroneous ruling and he violated the Torah law, he has to bring par shel Kohen Mashiach, and that's a Chatos Pnimis. And then it says in the pasuk ha-chatos, and the Hey Yediyah tells you to turn about a special chatos. And what's a special chatos? I mean, we already had par helim davar shel tzibur, which means that Rova the tzibur violated an Isa kares based on an erroneous ruling of the Bezna Gadol. What other avera would generate a special korban if the people of Israel would violate an erroneous psak regarding that avera? And the answer is, Elu se'irei avodas kochavim. So now we're talking about a case where there was an erroneous ruling regarding avodah zarah, and most of the tzibur violated avodah zarah based on that ruling. And there's a special chatos that's brought, which is delineated in Bamidbar Perek Tesvav. And this chatos is a sa'ir. Sa'ir means a goat, a male goat. But in Bamidbar Perek Tesvav, there's no detailed description of the avoda of this sa'ir. And by the way, as we'll soon see, today we would have brought a sa'ir, right? Because today is Rosh Chodesh, so we would have brought a sa'ir of Rosh Chodesh, which we mentioned in the Musaf today. And we'll see whether or not that sa'ir of Rosh Chodesh has the same dinim as the sa'ir of Avodah Zarah. And now we see the word hachatos, that the extra hey tells you that we're talking about a particular chatos, the procedure of which was not delineated by the Torah. And the Torah here, by writing the word hachatos, is telling me that this chatos, which we know now is the chatos of Avodah Zarah, has the same identical procedure as the parahelim davar shel tzibur, which would mean that we need hazoyos, right? 7 hazoyos towards the paroches, and we need to put the dam on the 4 corners of the mizbeach hapnimi, just like the case of a parahelim davar shel tzibur. Weiter, yochal shani marbe af seir regol v'sira rosh chodashim. Right. Once you've already told me that there's a special status of a soyer, a korban soyer, namely in the case of avodah zarah, then maybe I should extrapolate that whenever the tzibur has to bring a soyer, maybe they have to do it through the same procedures and the same avodah, and it becomes a let's say a chatos primis. So therefore, I should apply that rule to seirei regolim. Right, on Yontif we have to bring a soyer, and seirei rosh chodashim. On Rosh Chodesh we have to bring a soyer. And that's the korban musaf. And it's a chatos, and it's shel tzibur. So maybe the word hachatos here, which we said was superfluous, was coming to include even the chatos of the seirim of shalosh regolim and Rosh Chodesh. Now, if you look at the musaf service, it won't be a chiddush to you if I tell you that all these karbanos are brought lechaper, kind of a communal need for atonement. Again, exactly what did the tzibur violate and what are they guilty of? This we don't know, as the Gemara is going to point out right away. But it's nevertheless an assumption on the part of the Torah that the tzibur needs a kapara, which is once a month, 3 times a year on the regolim, and that's going to be a chatos with a soyer, very similar to the chatos of the soyer of avodah zarah, but not similar at all in truth. In the Havmi it says, and the answer is achar sheriba kosev umiet marbanias elu, etc., etc., and memait es elu. So we have now two categories of achatos that we're comparing and contrasting. We have the soyer of the avodah zarah violation, and we have the soyer of Rosh Chodesh and Regalim. And the pasuk itself has both a ribui and a mute. So we're going to have to decide, like a matching, which of these two seirim, chatos, seirim, have to be included, and we equate them with the chatos pnimis of soil avodah zarah, which should be excluded. So the Gemara now, quoting the Brisa, says that there's a logical answer to that question. The ribui we should apply to the avodah zarah case. Why? Again, the word elu is a little bit misleading because it's not really elu; it should be in the singular. But anyway, shemachaprim al averas mitzvah yedua. The Torah specifies which avera generates this special chiyuv of a soil lechatos, and that's the avera of avodah zarah. However, we have a miut, and we're going to use that miut, motzi ani as elu. Here we're going to talk about Moadim and Rosh Chodesh. She'ein mechaper laveris mitzvah yedua. Can you tell me what the atonement is for? Can you identify and pinpoint the avera that the tzibur violated? We don't know. Every Rosh Chodesh we have to bring the soyer, and every regal we have to bring a soyer. Okay, now we still have one more extra word in this pasuk from Vayikra Daled that we are darshaning in this brisa, the chiper. Now, what does the chiper mean? There's some sort of chiddush here that the kapara in the cases of chatos pnimios is different than the process that's necessary for the kapara of a chatos chitzon. In other words, we're going to lighten the burden and we're going to forfeit one or maybe even two requirements that apply to a chatos chitzono, and allow for v'chiper, meaning for the chatos hapnimis to achieve its kapara without those extra burdens of the avodah. And what are they? So it says afal pishlo soma. Normally, a karma chatos requires smicha, in which case the bailim lean, as we said, on the head of the animal and recite vidui. However, in the cases of a chatos pnimis, we don't require smicha. We do away with smicha. I'm just wondering if there's any explanation as to why the Torah. Second. Uh, Excuse me, I just want to take out the Masifta because he's not doing me justice here. See Lamed Tesam Beis. Let me just see if he adds anything here. Oh, the chiper afal pi shelo somach. Shelo somchu as kedem es yedem al par helim dover shel tzibur. Now again, I don't know why he's isolating part dover helim shel tzibur. Maybe there's a footnote because I think it should apply to all chatos hapnimios. And when he should part of tzibur. Ah, Here's what he tells you. He's saying that this extra pasuk is coming lafuke to exclude a havamina. Even though, as a general rule, smicha is never ma'akiv the carbon. The carbon without smicha is always kosher. But in the case of a par helim dover shel tzibur, where the Torah specifically says v'samchu ziknei ha'edus yideim al rosh hapar, and the requirement of smicha is spelled out explicitly in the case of par helim dover shel tzibur, and that obligation of smicha falls upon the shoulders of the ziknei Sanhedrin, because they represent the entire tzibur, I would dafka think that here, maybe in this case, as an exception to the rule, smicha is likuva. It's absolutely critical. And the kapara depends upon whether smicha, and if they forgot smicha, and they omitted it, the kapara is gone. So we need a special pasuk v'chiper to teach me that the kapara in the case of a parahelim dovashal tzibur will be clinched even in the absence of smicha. Then it says v'nislach, afal pishlo nosan shirayim, that the shvicha shirayim is not critical to the kaparas hakarban. Again, even though there certainly is a mitzvah of shvicha shirayim, you have to add something here, which again, in all due respect to the English translation, but here in the Hebrew translation, he says that we're talking about shvicha shirayim enim akeves sakapora. Just 1 second. So he quotes here Rishonim that say that to the same extent that Haktoras Ha'imurim is not Ma'akev in the Kaparas HaKarban because it's after the Zrika which clinched the Kapara, so too Shvichas Dam Hashirayim on the Yisod is also not Ma'akev the Kapara because it's after the Zrika that's Mechaperes, that's clinched the Kaparas HaKarban. So in other words, we have now the following situation. We have the Osa Kasher Osa, the Pasuk, and that's going to teach me that in terms of Hazos, the 7 Hazos that has to be done, Keneged HaParochas, those are Ma'akev. They're absolutely critical. And if he leaves out one of those Hazos, the carbon is Pasul. But the Pasuk V'chiper V'nisach are telling me that in the case where Smicha and Shvicha Shirayim were omitted, the kapara is clinched. So right away the Gemara says, Umar Rois. How do you know that when the Torah has a ribui, you're going to use that ribui for the absence of Smicha and Shirayim? When the Torah has a miut, you're going to tell me that miut is going to teach me to passel the carbon in the case of Azos. And the Gemara answers, Amrit. Posel bechatos, it makes more sense to use the miut of the osa kasher osa to teach me that the carbon is posel in the absence of one of the various azos. And why is that? Shema akvos b'chol mokom. Okay, we have to see what b'chol mokom refers to. Umachshu ani smichu shirayim shema akvos b'chol mokom. Right, because as we said before in all karbanos that there's a requirement, every single chatas requires smicha, and every single carbon requires shvicha shirayim, but yet it's never ma'akiv in any of the karbanos, and therefore even though there was a havamin in parahelim dovshel tzibur that maybe smicha would be ma'akiv kamash malon, that it's not ma'akiv. So I'm going to use the pasuk v'nislach as a ribui to tell me that even in the absence of smicha, and for that matter shvicha shirayim, then the carbon is still is still clinched. Okay, so now what does it mean lahachshir? Um, I'm sorry, ma'akvos b'chol makom. So again, we don't have time for this now, but we'll just take a look here on Daf Mem, so which is okay. I mean, we get a jump start. You know, Friday's always a very busy day. You have to cook for Shabbos, right? So we might want to get a little bit of a head start on Daf Mem, and so far we're okay. We have another 5 minutes at least. Omar Mar. So we quoted the Brisa of the Osa Shekar Osa in the case of Parhelim Dov Shel Tzibur, Ainli Ela Matan Sheva, right? That with regard to the seven hazos of the Chatas Apnimis, in this case the Parhelim Dov Shel Tzibur, Keneged the Paroches, it's absolutely ma'akfos. And then we had B'chol Makom, right? So we said the B'chol Makom means that we have already, so to speak, a precedent for the Sheva Hazos that, right, Keneged the Paroches, that have to all be fulfilled, every single last one of them. Hecha. Now, is there another case, B'chol Makom, because the Brisa doesn't just say here, but it says B'chol Makom, where the Hazos are miyakev. What's that referring to? So Papa says, Para ubinagoyim. So let's just understand a mitzora has to go through a couple of different stages, but in order to be mitire himself, and one of the last stages of the Tara is that you have to do hazos hadam, sheva hazos. Also in paraduma, people don't realize that it's not just that you shech the paraduma and then you burn it. It's much more complicated than that, and you require hazos. He says that when they brought the paraduma after its shchita, they were mazah the dam sheva pam keneged ol moed. And the pasuk says, "V'lakachel azara kohen midama be'etzba'o v'zaldochach pnei ol moed midama b'sheva pa'amim." And these hazos are ma'akiv. Each one is ma'akiv. Any singular hazor, if it's missing, is ma'akiv. How do we know this? And that's because the parsha paraduma, which was my bar mitzvah parsha, that's how I know this, opens up in chukas with the word zos chukas haTorah. And whenever the Torah uses the word chok, it means liikuva. That's absolutely indispensable. And even with regard to paraduma, even with regard to negoyim, there also the Torah says chukah. Let's see if he has the pasuk here. Yeah. But midbar yutes, v'lakacha kohen midama, bizol nochach pnei ol moed midama sheva pa'amim. And it says, zos chukas haTorah. Okay then, so this is where we'll stop for today. Stop. So tomorrow's not Rosh Chodesh, so I assume that 9:30 should be good. And maybe you want to start earlier, you'll let me know. I know you don't start davening till 8. We start davening at 6:30. So it's one of those quickie shuls. Not like, Haley good katamon. Okay, wishing you a great day.